Hey guys, welcome back to Colleague Conversation with me, Rick.
And Nain.
And today we're going to discuss, or actually, the topic that you chose was what?
When is too much information just too much information when given a class?
Yeah, and I get that because I've had that running through my head too, because usually we try to keep the conversations or the particular class of the day
Concise.
to a limited amount of things,
Right.
as opposed to going through this whole gambit of stuff. I think, if you're going to teach something, it shouldn't be more than 2 or 3 items in that conversation. Then you can discuss all the things within those 3 items.
Right. And the various ways that you can approach the learning aspect of those items
Right.
versus beating a dead horse.
Right. I mean, one of the things that I've always just cringe on is to have somebody just, going into too many things that my head can't. After a while, you just go brain dead.
Yeah, your brain can only take so much.
Right. I mean, and I've done that in the past. I'm guilty, where I talked about too many things for too long, and you get that glossy look in the student's eyes, like, when is it going to stop?
So maybe it's not so much the amount of information, but
Right.
the amount of time you spend on any given topic.
Right. Yeah. You kind of wonder how much can a student take in a, let's say, hour or 2 lesson.
Right.
Depending on how much time you have. I mean, how much is too much, and how much is not enough.
Oh, that's,
I mean,
that's a good point.
where's that balance?
That balance, yeah.
Yeah, because we've had classes where we didn't
Gone
give
6
enough,
hours.
or 6 hours, and that's crazy. But and on the other end, where we didn't give enough stuff, and we're like, okay,
Right.
were we just rehashing everything we were doing that day? Did we spend too much time in exercising to let the hours go by, so that we didn't have to teach something more?
Right.
I mean, where do we draw the line, and how much of that is taken for granted by the instructor?
I definitely think that even before we get to a time frame or how much information you're giving somebody, as an instructor, you really have to be able to look in the mirror and say, what is it you're giving your students? And is this the right time for them to have this information?
Right. Yeah. That's the other part of that too. Is that, like you said, are they ready for this next lesson, and have they shown enough
Right.
to get the next lesson?
Side point on that though, how do you know that it's enough? That what do you see or what do you look for in a student's performance that tells you they're ready for this next part?
What I've always looked for, and I'm glad you asked, because I'll show one student something,
Right.
then I'll show another student the same exact thing. And what I see from one student versus the other would then allow me to say, okay, you're ready for the next thing, but you're not. Even though you were given the same thing,
At the same time.
and what we've said before is like how that student understands the material.
Right.
So
right.
you are going to have somebody who gets it right away. Then you have the other student who might need a little bit more time. So, you have to look at the individual. And I think that's where we draw the line as far as how much is too much and how much is too little.
It's dependent on the
On
student.
the individual student,
Right.
based on everything that we've already talked about, in the other conversations we've had. I think it's not fair to say that, oh, if you don't get what we're doing,
It's
too
okay,
bad.
just keep going.
Yeah, but you want to make sure they get the information,
Right.
that they understand it well enough so that they can move on to the next thing. One of the things that Danny has always said, you almost have to pause everything and say, you're not getting this, so let me show you it another way.
Right.
And not to say that, you're dumbing it down.
No.
It's just that particular individual student, maybe through his upbringing or whatever, or just the way he learns, isn't the same as everybody else. So
I
you
even
almost-
have a learning disability too.
Yeah, and you have to slow it down. So okay, and you have to ask the questions. I think we did that in the past.
Right.
Where we had one kid who had autism,
Oh yeah. Pretty,
Remember that kid?
Pretty deep autism.
and the parents were adamant that, hey, this kid has a learning disability. He's not going to be like your other students, and we really had to take our time
Oh, that was a challenge.
and get him to move the way he needed to move, so we can keep going
Right.
to the next thing. So, in that sense, yeah, you have to spend it a little more time. But again, at what point do you say, okay, well, we're just really not
That's
going
not
to get
gonna
this.
happen.
It's not going to happen. And you have to be caring enough about your students
To know when to stop.
when to do that. I
Right,
mean,
right.
and if you're not, then you're doing an injustice to that particular student, I think.
That's very true. And it feels that you really have to start the questioning with yourself as an instructor. It's like, how well do I understand what I'm showing? Why am I showing this to my students? Is it because that's what I was told to do? Because that's the traditional way of doing it? Do I know what this is used for later on in the future? Is it helpful to the students later on in the future?
Right.
You really have to question your own understanding of any given topic that you're going to teach. Because you have to get creative enough to adapt to that individual student that may not be picking it up as quickly, or even the student that picks it up way too fast but misses so much more because they're moving
Right.
at an accelerated rate.
Right. And as I've always said, slow down and smell the roses, because
Right.
you miss so many things going too fast. Or you get that one eager student who just wants to know everything right away,
Right.
and you almost have to slap them back and say, cut it out, slow down.
Is that why you slapped me a few times?
Every chance I get. Yeah, yell out guilty. But yeah, and you have, we as instructors have to understand the individual student, which is why we always talk about the idea that
The individual
we're not,
mind,
we're not teaching the masses, we're
No,
teaching the
right,
individual
right.
student. Because if you're teaching in a class format and you're hoping everybody gets it, you're totally missing the mark.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest issues in our school system is the fact that there's too many students to a class.
Right.
And the teachers don't have the opportunity to give the other students that need to catch up that time to get there, or to explain things in such a way that they do understand.
Yeah, and the slower students are just really left in the dirt.
Right, they're just left in the back, and then they go, and it happens with any sort of class, especially
And
martial
it's
arts.
funny, and sometimes it's not even that they're slow. I mean, like me, I have dyslexia, so I see things backwards.
Really?
My numbers are always mixed up. If I ever give you a phone number, you better verify it really good, because I will
Right,
always
calls
write
about
those-
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll always write. So when I'm hearing things, sometimes I don't hear it the same as everybody else. So in that sense, if we're not understanding that a student might be that way,
Right.
we just blow past and keep, oh yeah, come on, do this, and we say, oh, you can't get it. Then it's time to ask those questions.
So do you think that's what happens with a lot of students? It's not that they're not getting it, it's just that they have their own way of understanding things.
Right.
And then you beat a dead horse. You explain it and over-explain
And
everything
it's
so
just
much.
as you're going to say. Mistake.
Right, and their mind just... bleh.
Yeah, and we've had that happen, and until we start to ask the questions, we'll never know.
Right.
And in that sense, then you start the lesson properly and say, okay, now that I know you have this disability, or you have
This process that you need to follow.
that we have to then, okay, let's slow it down for that individual.
Right.
And if we're not going to do that, then we really shouldn't be teaching that.
That's true. That's true. If you're not going to take the time. But it is difficult when you talk about a class setting and you have X amount of students, and it's a fairly large class, 15, 20 students at a time. Is it really feasible to give them that type of attention?
Right.
Individualized.
And that's the other end of it.
Right.
Yeah. Do you take up that time for that kid and let the other kids hang out and wait?
Right.
It's a fine balance, isn't it?
And there's one thing that I've appreciated about you, because you've been able to give me a class while giving another student a class.
Right.
It's not that you're really giving us the same lesson, but you're helping me become a better instructor while giving the student a lesson. And it's the same criteria, same topic, but yet we both take something different away from it.
And I do that because I understand your level of understanding
I see.
versus what the new student's level of understanding. It shouldn't be a problem teaching the same thing, but because of what you understand is going to be at the advanced level, I can teach you guys the same thing, but you're both going to get something different out of it. And that's what I kind of pride myself on, is that, okay, I can give this one lesson to two totally different levels, and both are going to get what they get out of
We
it.
get something different out of it, but it's still good. Good
But
information.
and then it doesn't take away from the class. I don't break off and say, okay, I'm going to teach you first, and then
For an hour.
wait your turn, Nain, for an hour, then I come back to you. And I don't know how many other people do that, but
I
one of those things that I just understood that I could do because of what I bring to the table.
right, and it feels like that equates to the fight in itself, because you may not always have one opponent. So how do you take care of multiple opponents at the same time? And you know, you do the same things, the way you teach, the way you fight, the way you live.
Right.
It all has to coincide. Otherwise, you're constantly switching between different thought processes, and they're not going to mesh well together.
And I think the sooner that, you know, we can understand which student is which or which opponent is which, then we can really cater that fight to the proper way, or the lesson in the proper way, so that we can say, okay, you have to learn it this way and you learn it this way.
Right.
Here's
You,
the
I can
happy-
explain a little more. You, I can hit a little more.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting that we're bringing up this topic, because I've seen, you know, other students who really excel at a school, and then in the same school you have other students who just can't move forward.
And I think we brought that topic up, I think, in our first video, how some students will go the distance because they get it so quickly, and
Right.
it fits for their either their body type or their mentality,
Right.
and then other students don't. So you lose so many students because they just can't understand it. And it's not that they're dumb or slow or have any disability whatsoever. It's just the mentality behind what's being given, or the way that it's being given, just doesn't come across. And to bring back what we were talking about earlier about teaching two students at the same time, it seems that the important and kind of light bulb moment I had a few minutes ago is the simplicity in which you give the lesson.
Right. And that's the thing about the Blade of Mind. We try to keep it as simple as possible.
Right.
But because of the individual's understanding, it could be the difference, you know, like Lex Luthor would say in Superman, right? He says, you know, somebody could read away the back of a bubble gum and get, you know,
The secrets of the universe.
right. Then it's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, you know, you have to understand your audience, I guess, as far as the instruction is concerned. But also, you have to be willing to take the time for the other students who are not getting it or don't have it that way.
Right.
And, you know, it's said that sometimes you might have to take away from the more advanced students. But I feel that, you know, in our situation, there's usually three of us, me, you, and Danny,
Right.
where
right.
we are able to say, okay, hey, let's
off.
break the class up. You take these guys, and I'll take this guy, and you take whatever. And in that sense, we're able to do that. I don't, you know, we do keep a small class.
Yes,
we
that's
don't have
on
more
purpose.
than 10 students at a time. You know, private classes are always great because we can do that.
Case
But
in
we
point.
try. We made sure that we don't have so many students that somebody misses the boat.
Right.
You know, in what's being taught. And Danny is a really, you know, the cool thing about Danny is that he will rally around each student. You know, he'll spend the 10 or 15 minutes and just bounce around to each other.
Right,
While
right.
we're giving a regular class,
That is pretty cool.
he will pull them off to the
Yeah.
side. Okay, let's see what you got going on. How are you comprehending this and whatever else?
Even his initial approach when a student comes in is, all right, let's talk first. Let's have this conversation.
Right.
Why do you want to learn this? What are you trying to get out of it? And he really tries to get a sense of the individual's goals. Even before we say, this is for you, or come on, let's show you something cool. No, it's, what are you really trying to get from this?
What do you want?
What do you
Yeah.
want? And then, can we give it to you? And if we can, we'll be the first to be like, look, there are other great instructors out there that
and
will...
he has done that.
he has. You know, he's told other people, look, this would probably work better for you. This something else, or this might not be for you. And I remember you guys even like had to turn away a student that just was there for 2 years and just wasn't getting it, and was stuck in his ways and wouldn't advance. So even to the point of saying, hey, look, we'll gladly keep taking your money, but it's not working for you. You know, this might not be the best thing for you.
Yeah, and you feel bad about it, but
Yeah.
you also feel good that you're not having them waste their time on something that, you know, I mean, if they're keyed in on what they're doing in the past,
Right.
you should go back to that.
Right, and
then
involve that.
you could grow from there.
Right.
But if you're not going to grow with what we're doing, then you're wasting your time. You know, I mean, again, we're glad to take money, but that just isn't in my nature. I just hate doing that. You know, you know, I feel really bad if that be the case. I mean,
That's true.
you know, going forward, what do you think is a big element then, based on this conversation, that the students do grow? Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look at you. You're almost on 7 years, actually.
Going on next year in March.
Yeah.
7 years.
You learned from the very beginning because you had no background.
None.
You were a clean slate,
Right.
and you were a sponge.
Well, I kind of had the movie version of martial arts. That was a lot of misconceptions.
Been there, done that. I think we all have. Everybody out there has.
Yeah, but I was 28 when that happened. So.
Yeah. But no, you know, if you look at that and the way that you were taught, I mean, our classes were a lot more in depth, and we weren't so streamlined as we are today.
No, there was still a lot of like
the traditional
way of teaching. And that's what stood out the most to me, is that I had that sense of the traditional training. I was like, all right, you do this, you do this, you do this, and I was going home and doing it 100 times. But I was missing the verbal part, the explanations, the ideas behind the physical stuff. Like I think one of the topics that's been going around right now is the usefulness of drills.
Right.
And do you just beat it to death and go over and over again, or do you go in depth and to understand what it is at its face value, and then completely break it apart, and then bring it back whenever you need to learn a different idea behind it? Like recently we did Sombrada, and the concept was the empty hand. That was the idea. It's like, what do you do with this? How does it become more? And that was the face value of that particular lesson, using an old drill. But what I took away from it was something completely different from it because of the way you guys taught me to.
And let's put a little background to that.
Oh, yes.
Some people might not understand. We have and every system has it. They have some broader drills, they even have Senawala drills, whatever. But in any drill, it's a repetition because you're trying to hone in on the ability to do this automatically, right? But Danny would say that once you learn something, take it apart and really get a skill set for each individual piece.
Right.
It's not just so much as doing the drill.
Right. It's not the set that you're looking for, but you're trying to analyze each part of it and understand it as best you can at your level.
So let's show that just to make it clear that if this is a Sombrada drill, and we're going to go nice and slow. You know, it's a 1-for-1 drill. I come up, you come down, blah, blah, blah. You hit, I block, whatever. And this is the regular drill. So that's what's taught back and forth. But in that process, are you really just doing that? Will that actually happen in a real fight? No. No chance in hell at all.
No.
But if we understand, if this is the first piece, now look at each piece. So let's look at that. All he did was deflect the stick, grabbed my hand, and got chambered for the next strike. Well, is that all there is to that? Now let's see, maybe he focuses on, now instead of doing a check hand, he's actually going into my face. He could be poking my eye out or whatever he wants to do. So that's another aspect of that drill. But again, we go again. This time my hand is available. You know, because again, we look at both sides of the fight, and I'm not just there for, him to beat me up.
Right.
So instantaneously, we're both taking something away from a simple drill and say, okay, what's my value to this drill? Mm-hmm. How do I change it to suit me for what I need?
Right.
And if I can't do that, then what good is this drill?
Why am I repeating it?
Because this drill is never going to happen in a real fight.
Right, and we know that. We preface that.
So if we go again, this time we'll go to the second piece of the drill, right? From here, and we're here. Okay, so what does that entail? We'll do it again. What happens next? Oh. Wow. This is a valuable thing. Maybe, maybe not, whatever. Right. But we start to understand,
what the possibilities are.
The possibilities are I can go into something else. On his side of the fight, I go in and we're doing this. He doesn't bring that out right away. He checks my hand and hits me here. Instead of coming to where this would normally be, he's taking out my hand. So now you're learning a bunch of different things within the same drill. But every time we go back to it, we start to learn different things. And I think that's one of our first understandings of drills.
Right.
Is that we learn it as well as we can. We get very good at it. But then we have to deconstruct
Break it apart.
and see what is it within these drills
Mm-hmm.
that will actually happen or that I could use as an individual piece. We talked about the Legos. And these are each pieces of Legos.
1, 2. Oh, all right. Just 2 different pieces. Whether I use this one first or I go with this one first, they're just things that you do, and you learn them in a sequence so you can practice them, but not for the sequence sake.
Right.
Just so you can remember, oh, there's another piece to this. I have to go after I do one thing, I have to do another. And it just teaches the mind to constantly keep moving. How you move, though, well, that's the exploration part of each piece.
Right.
And how well you can piece it together and put it back and break it in upside down and backwards. And it's a lot of fun. And I think that brings up a great point into the sense of how the students pick up the information.
Right. Because one student, like we said, with the Lego idea, you build a house.
Right.
You're both going to have 2 different kind of houses, even though you have all the same pieces.
Right.
And one person will take one thing away from it, and the other will take something totally different. And that's one of the things that I love to explore, because I can keep doing the same drill,
Come up with.
and get something different every time. You know,
And you've shown
Nain
that.
has been doing from the very beginning. We used to joke about it, 1 in 11.
the
You know,
same
the
one.
you know, an angle 1, angle 11, and
I'm still finding new things.
for the past 6.5 years or so, we're still working on 1 in 11.
We really are. It
And
hasn't deviated.
he hasn't progressed.
Right.
He sucks as a student. But you know it so well
Yeah.
that you're able to do a gazillion different things
Yeah.
with the 1 in 11.
From power to speed to just the dexterity in which you can just yield it in the same movement.
And you said power and speed, because that's 2 different things that happen.
Right.
But also there's timing.
Timing,
Rhythm. Yeah.
Footwork, routines, the entire dynamics of what you can do with it.
Right.
There's so much elements to a very simple idea, and I think that's the big part, is that we kept it so simple that you put it upon me, the student, to really explore myself and say, all right, what do I really understand from this?
Right.
And how much more is there for me to see, to understand, and grow from over this very simple idea?
And the other piece of that too, going back to the students who can't do the particular steps, or because of the way their body is, you learn to move the way you move.
My body might say yes.
Right. It isn't we're telling you, oh, you have